Dear beautiful and radiant viewers, welcome to 18th episode of Art and Dharma, where we will talk about the connections or interplay between art and Dharma. My name is Victor Gabriel and I am a lecturer at Sakya Buddha University in Santa Ana, California. You can reach me through my email awake.star.sky@gmail.com. In episode 18, I would like to discuss the Buddha's footprint, their iconography, their role in Buddhist cosmology, their devotional practices and significance. The Buddha's footprint, or the footprint of the Buddha, is a significant symbol in Buddhism, representing the physical presence, spiritual significance, and the teachings of the Buddha. It is not just an emblem of the historical Buddha's earthly journey, but also a powerful symbol of his teachings and the path to enlightenment. This episode explores the significance of the Buddha's footprint from historical, symbolic, and cultural perspective, and its impact on Buddhist practice and art. Historical context. The historical Buddha's presence. The Buddha's footprint originates from ancient Indian tradition of marking the presence of significant figures. In the context of Buddhism, these footprints symbolize the actual physical presence of Siddhartha Gautama, the historical Buddha. According to legend, the Buddha left footprints whenever he traveled, which were considered sacred and powerful. The earliest examples known of the Buddha's footprints date back to the 3rd century BCE during the reign of Emperor Ashoka. Ashoka, a great patron of Buddhism, is credited with the spreading and erecting monuments to Buddhism, such as stupas and pillars that featured Buddha's footprints. These footprints were initially used to commemorate the Buddha's life and teachings and to mark places of pilgrimage. Evolution over time. Over time, the representation of the Buddha's footprints evolved from simple naturalistic depictions to a more elaborate and symbolic forms. These footprints became a central motif in Buddhist art and architecture, especially in the context of stupas, monasteries, and temples. For example, in today's artwork, there are one-way symbols that make up the Buddha's footprints. The symbolic significance. The Buddha's footprints symbolize the physical presence of the Buddha on earth. They serve as a tangible connection to the historical figure who achieved enlightenment and shared his teachings with the world. The footprints act as a physical reminder of his journey and the impact of his teachings. Spiritual significance. Beyond their physical representation, the Buddha's footprints are imbued with spiritual meaning. They symbolize the path of Dharma or the Buddha's teachings, which guide followers towards enlightenment. The footprints represents the Buddha's guidance and the steps one must take to achieve enlightenment. As a symbol of impermanence. The footprints also symbolize the impermanence of the physical world. They remind practitioners that the Buddha's physical presence, like all things, is temporary, but the teachings he left behind are enduring and valuable. Iconography and symbolism. Traditional depictions of the Buddha's footprints include various auspicious symbols such as lotus, flower, the Dhammachakra or wheel, the conch shell. These signify the Buddha's enlightened qualities and the teachings he imparted. The footprints may have also specific marks, like the 32 auspicious marks of a great being, which are considered signs of the Buddha's divine nature. Sacred geography. The footprints are often associated with significant Buddhist sites and places where the Buddha is believed to have walked. For example, in places like Lumbini, Bodh and Sarna, footprints are used to commemorate important events in the Buddha's life and to sanctify these locations for pilgrimage. Cultural impact, pilgrimage and veneration. Pilgrim sites Buddha's footprints have become central to many pilgrimage sites. Devotees travel to these sites to pay homage, meditate, and reflect on the Buddha's teachings. These footprints act as focal points for spiritual practice and are revered as embodiments of the Buddha's presence. Rituals and offerings. At pilgrimage sites, ritual and offerings are often made to the Buddha's footprints. This veneration is an expression of respect and devotion and is believed to bring blessings and spiritual merit to practitioners. Artistic representation. Buddha's footprints are integrated into Buddhist architecture, including stupas, temples, and monastic complexes. These depictions are not only artistic expressions, but serve as educational tools that convey the significance of the Buddha's life and teachings. In Buddhist art, footprints are depicted in various forms, from simple carvings to elaborate frescoes. These artworks serve to inspire and remind practitioners of the Buddha's journey and the path of enlightenment. Educational and inspirational role. The Buddha's footprints serve as an educational tool, helping practitioners and newcomers to understand key aspects of the Buddha's life and teachings. They illustrate the journey of the Buddha and the steps one should follow to achieve enlightenment. Inspiration for practice. For many Buddhists, the Buddha's footprints are a source of inspiration and motivation. They represent the ideal path of ethical conduct, meditation, and wisdom, encouraging practitioners to walk in the footprints of the Buddha and strive for spiritual growth. The concept of the Buddha's footprint is related to the concept of the paduka, or sacred sandals in Hinduism. The paduka refers to traditional sandals or footwear of a revered teacher, saint, or deity. These sandals are not merely objects, but imbued with profound religious meaning and representing the divine presence, spiritual guidance, and respect for the Guru. Ancient traditions. The use of the padukas in Hinduism can be traced back to ancient times, reflecting the long-standing tradition of honoring sacred objects associated with spiritual figures. In ancient Hindu culture, showing respect for revered teacher or deity often included reverence for their personal belongings, including their footwear. Scriptural references. Hindu scriptures and texts frequently mentions padukas representing their significance. The Ramayana and Mahabharata, two of the most important epics in Hinduism, contains references to the padukas or footwear revered of figures like Lord Ram and other deities. These references highlight the tradition of venerating physical objects associated with spiritual leaders. Historical figures. Many historical and contemporary saints and sages and spiritual leaders in Hinduism have been honored through their padukas. For example, the padukas of saints like Sri Ramakrishna and Swami Vivekananda are venerated as symbols of their divine presence and teachings. Symbols of divine presence. In Hinduism, the paduka is often considered a physical representation of the divine presence. The sandals are believed to embody the spiritual energy and blessings of the people they belong to, whether a deity or a revered teacher. This concept is akin to the idea of sacred relics in other traditions. Spiritual guidance. The paduka symbolizes the guidance and teachings of the deity or guru. Just as the teacher's words guide students on the spiritual path, the paduka represents the physical manifestation of this guidance. Worshipping the sandals is seen as receiving the blessings and wisdom of the teacher or deity. Respect and devotion as expressions of reverence. In the Hindu tradition, showing reverence to the paduka is a way of expressing respect and devotion to the spiritual figure associated with it. This practice emphasizes the importance of humility and the recognition of the spiritual authority of the teacher. Humility and surrender. The act of worshipping the paduka also signifies humility and surrender. By focusing on the sandals rather than the person themselves, devotees practice the principle of surrendering to the divine will and acknowledging the divine presence in humble forms. Cultural and ritual practices. The paduka is often the focus of elaborate rituals and ceremonies. In many temples and ashrams, the paduka is placed on a special pedestal and is offered flowers, incense, and prayers. This ritual worship underscores the sacred status of the sandals and its role in connecting the devotees to the divine. Ceremonial processions. In some traditions, the paduka is carried in ceremonial processions during festivals or special occasions. This practice highlights the honor and reverence accorded to the paduka and the spiritual figure it represents. From the paduka and the Buddha's footprints, you can see that there are many cross-pollination. The various Buddhist traditions and cultures have varied interpretations and representations of the Buddha's footprints. While the core symbolism remains consistent, the artistic and ritualistic expressions may differ. Understanding these variations is important for the comprehensive appreciation of the footprint's significance. Modern perspectives. In the modern context, the symbolic value of the Buddha's footprints may be interpreted in various ways, depending on the cultural and personal perspectives. While some may focus on the historical and ritualistic aspects, others may emphasize the philosophical and metaphorical meanings. Preservation and authenticity. Preserving the authenticity and integrity of Buddhist footprint sites is crucial for maintaining their historical and spiritual significance. Efforts to protect and preserve these sites are essential to ensure that future generations can continue to benefit from their cultural and spiritual heritage. Authenticity and interpretation. Ensuring that interpretation of the Buddha's footprints are accurate and respectful of their historical and cultural context is important. This includes avoiding misrepresentation and ensuring that symbolic meanings are conveyed appropriately. The Buddha's footprint is a profound symbol of Buddhism, representing the physical presence, spiritual significance, and the teachings of the Buddha. Its historical origins, symbolic meanings, and cultural impacts underscore its importance in Buddhist practice and art. For serving as a reminder of the Buddha's earthly journey to acting as a source of inspiration and devotion, the Buddha's footprint continues to play a vital role in the spiritual lives of Buddhists around the world. Its preservation and respectful interpretation ensures that its significance endures as a cherished element of Buddhist heritage. Today, we have talked about the Buddha's footprints, their iconography, their role in Buddhist cosmology, their devotional practices, and significance. If you like this episode, please write to me at awake.star.sky@gmail.com. Tell me what you like, what you have enjoyed, and what you would like to see more of. You can also submit artwork that you want me to comment about. Thank you.